every asset becomes security for every loan. Sitting client side, we certainly take a view that that's not the way to do things now. I mean, fundamentally, there's asset protection issues that come out of that. Accountants and lawyers do a great job of setting up structures, putting things in different trusts and companies to keep everything secure from creditors, and then borrowers will go and put everything with one bank, and all of a sudden that asset protection, it can really go down the gurgler when the bank decides we don't like one little piece of the puzzle here.
Yeah. And look, I think you can understand from a bank's point of view why they do it. I mean, they're a bank, they want to be secured as much as possible. But really the critical thing is, again, comes back to my point around the compliance versus risk argument. Sometimes it's just the easy option to take all the security. It makes things easier from the bank's point of view, but really, is it really putting the customer at the centre? And you probably argue not, because sometimes, and in cases that we're arguing, is really around the risk position and is that security required, and then what's the client's actual goal and desire? What are they trying to achieve long term? So again, it's about that negotiating process and understanding what's acceptable to a financier and the risks that they're taking versus really putting the customer and the client at the centre and saying what's right for them.
And part of the process that we go through too, clearly setting out how we want a transaction to be structured based upon our analysis of the risk that the bank is taking or the lender is taking, which is based upon our experience, which is a very different scenario than going to a bank saying, please, can I have this? As opposed to, this is what the transaction should be based upon A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
And I think it comes back to, the whole storytelling piece, and understanding why we're putting forward an argument for a certain structure, what the client's trying to achieve, what's important to them, but not only that, why it is an acceptable risk for everyone involved.
Yeah, I think that's the exciting thing about being on the client side of things, Dale, is that it's that independence that we really do bring. And we're trying to do the right thing by the customer and have them absolutely at the centre of everything we do. But also being realistic about the funders we're dealing with, and they need to cover that risk. So I think, even in my short time here, I'm really impressed on the way that's the culture of Stack, and it's really transparent. And we're just trying to do the right thing by everyone.
We want to be long-term advisors, have a long-term relationship with our clients. We're not interested in just being transaction focused. I mean, absolutely we're transaction focused. A deal that needs to get done, so we're absolutely focused on that. But ultimately we want the best long-term outcomes for the clients because we want to be long-term advisors for them. So we want that structure that we set up today for the transaction today to work for them for years to come.
Yeah, and it's probably a good point. I mean, it's probably another thing that I've seen change in the last 20 years in banking is, inevitably bankers just don't have the time to spend with clients talking about those goals in the short, medium and long term. So it can be quite reactive and it's very event-based. And that's the business model of the banks, and that's great. But I think realistically, what is missing in the market and that what we bring is that long-term view. So being able to solve for an event today, but also having those really rich conversations about what does a customer need or desire, or what's the opportunity for them in the medium and long term, and then really starting to plan that out with them, and then going back to the funders and talking about long-term roadmaps in terms of where they're headed. And what support they're likely to get.
Yeah, and look, I think it's an extremely powerful message to be going to the bank with a strategy in place, not only short term, but for a long term, so that those people within the bank that are supporting the business by making these important decisions that are paramount to drive the growth of our clients are really informed in terms of the strategy behind the funding request in front of them, and ultimately, really, it's providing a better outcome for the client, but also giving the bank that full picture of what the client's trying to achieve.
Yeah. And what we were talking about just the other day with a client was around that, how you set out the long-term strategy with a bank or with a fund manager or whoever's getting involved in something, as opposed to just the transaction today. I mean, if you're intending to make 5 acquisitions over the next 2 years, just going to a bank and saying, this is the money that I want today for this transaction, and then turning up to them in 4 months' time saying, hey, I need some more money for another transaction.
Yeah.
Like, as a credit manager, what's your
exactly? I
response to
mean,
that?
it's not a good look whenever you're getting a file on your desk, every couple of weeks or every couple of months. It really does sow the seed of doubt around the strategic direction of the business and the ability of those people to manage the business. I think the more we can share with the funders, whether it's a bank or other funders in the market around the long-term strategy, it just gives confidence to everyone involved. And I guess it comes back to that character, the character piece that we often talked about in banking, the 3 Cs. Character really still is and should be the foundation. So we want to be able to deliver some confidence and certainty around that character piece, and having a long-term view and the work done behind that really does go to help that.